Now then, how are you doing? Finally, it seems spring is here and the bluebells are out. Now, I just spent some time walking and sketching in Cornwall and was amazed to find them growing in abundance along the southwest coastal path, along the tops of the cliffs overlooking the sea. Now, I love bluebells, and in this demonstration I want to show you how to paint them in their most commonly found setting, the Bluebell Wood. Without doubt, one of the most popular of all landscape subjects is the Bluebell Wood. A sure sign that spring is finally here, the sight of bluebells can be a truly magical and uplifting experience, and for the painter, it's a ready-made composition. Painting bluebells in their natural habitat can be a tall order for the watercolourist. Their colour can appear to change dramatically in different light, and choosing a colour combination that captures their delicate nature can be tricky. After drawing out the scene using a light, weak burnt umber, I'm going to proceed with a loose wet-in-wet wash consisting of cadmium yellow and Prussian blue. The object of the wash is to roughly establish areas of foliage in the trees and provide a form of underpainting upon which the rest of the painting can be built up. Because distant bluebells often appear as a misty blanket of colour, I'm including the impression of bluebells in that first wash while it's still wet. I'm lifting out a few highlights with tissue where the wash hasn't quite settled how I'd like it to. It'll create a hard edge, of course, but in small amounts at this stage it's not going to matter. The colour I'm using for the bluebells is mixed from cobalt blue and cobalt violet. Once the initial wet-in-wet wash has dried, I turn my attention to the foliage in the trees. Using a light green mixed from cadmium yellow and Prussian blue, I paint the leaves, or to be more accurate, I paint clumps of leaves. Of course, there'll be individual leaves represented by individual brush marks, but in general, I don't actually want it all to look too busy, not at this stage anyway. Notice also how I'm softening off parts of the foliage with clean water. This is just me treading carefully. Selectively blending the colour into the surrounding wash gives me a little breathing space. Deliberately leaving some areas undefined means I can change my mind about them later. I'm now using the same green to break up the floor of the woodland with patches of grass. It's important not to create any patterns that are too repetitive, and to curve the strips of green in order to suggest contours. I'm also using negative painting in order to create the foreground grasses. At this point, I'm going to switch my attention from the foreground to the background and paint in the background trees using a blue-grey mix of French ultramarine and burnt umber. I'm going to be using a fair amount of negative painting here, leaving the light green foliage I've already painted untouched to exaggerate and enhance the foreground. Remember the importance of tone. Lights must be set against darks in order to clearly define things. On this occasion, I'm placing dark tones into the background and leaving light tones in the foreground. A Bluebell Wood scene isn't complete if it doesn't have a track leading the eye into the picture. It's traditional. Here I'm painting in the track using a rich mix of burnt umber. The track also plays an important role in helping to draw the eye in towards the focal point. I'm now going to paint in the darker tones within the bluebells themselves. The colour I'm using for this is a mix of French ultramarine and alizarin crimson. Far from being a botanical study of bluebells, I'm more interested in creating an impression of how they appear to the casual observer. I'm now going to start painting in some of the branches, using a dark, rich mix of burnt umber and French ultramarine. It's important for branches to make sense. I don't want to overdo them, or it'll reduce the impact of the foliage. If a branch disappears into leaves then reappears further out, we have to believe that it's all part of the same branch. It isn't crucial for every leaf and branch to be seen to be connected, but it is important for branches to represent the overall flow of the tree. Avoid straight lines and 90-degree angles. Now seems as good a time as any to start painting in the shadows. In a scene like this, shadows can help bring life to the moment, help to define contours, and link parts of the composition together. For the shadows, I've mixed my two old faithfuls, French ultramarine and burnt umber. I'm now bulking out the foliage using a darker tone of green, mixed from cadmium yellow and French ultramarine. I'm also taking the opportunity to apply green to any random untouched highlights that have appeared in the tree. If it's a highlight, it's a leaf. It's important for these darker tones to be consistent with the light source. Since the light is coming from the right, all shadows must be on the left side of objects. That goes for the foliage too. It's now time to start painting in the darkest tones, mixed from French ultramarine and burnt umber. I'm going to apply these dark tones, firstly, to the point at which the tree trunk disappears into the light green foliage. This extreme contrast helps to exaggerate and enhance the leaves, giving them the appearance of overhanging and being in front of the tree trunk. Softening off and blending in the dark tone with clean water helps to merge it into the surrounding wash, avoiding any unsightly and difficult to explain hard edges.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that. Painting bluebells is all about getting the colours right. Cobalt blue and cobalt violet is the combination that I've found works best for me. I'll see you next time.